Okay, next we have determinants of economic development. First one is the economic factors, capital formation, economic system like capitalist, socialist, or mixed economy, and economic policy. This is narrower than the economic system. In 1991, India changed its policy, but the system is still the same. Structure of economy: what is the contribution of various sectors? Level of specialization: the more specialization, more efficiency. Composition of the foreign trade: for example, developing countries export agricultural goods. Natural resources, economic survey mentioned about resource curves. For example, in Jharkhand versus we have to move towards knowledge economy. So all this will be dealt in subsequent chapters. In this chapter, we'll call capital formation. Some non-economic factors like socio-cultural factors like women, caste, language issues, political factors like democratic culture, psychological development like urge to develop as aspirational society, religious factors like fatalism, that is written in fate, and terrorism, etc. Demographic factors like labor force, demographic dependency ratio, these also are the determinants of the economic development. So in this chapter we'll see capital formation, which is also called as the investment. First of all, let's define it. It refers to process of increase in the physical stock of the capital, for example machinery, factory, etc. So increase in physical stock of the capital. So it is the most important determinant of economic growth and development according to economic survey 2013. Investment, especially the private investment, it is a key driver for it drives the demand, that is the expenditure on the capital goods is done is called as the investment, therefore it drives the demand. Next, it creates capacity. uh, Goods, both consumer and capital goods are there. Consumer goods won't create any capacity, but capital goods will increase the capacity for the future production, and labor productivity will be increased. For example, tractor versus block for this farm mechanization. New technology like electronic vehicles use lithium ion battery, and creative destruction is a replacement of the obsolete methods, technology, and equipment. For example, old bulbs consume more power and generate jobs, which is a core component of the Make in India program. So it is a key driver of it, drives demand, creates capacity, increases labor productivity. New technology allows creative destruction and generates jobs, just given in economic survey 2019. Next, we have Harrod Domer model. This was used in first 5-year plan. So according to this model, investment is the core of the model, and investment should balance two things, which is it should increase the demand, it should increase the productive capacity. If demand is more than productive capacity, it will lead to inflation. If it is less than the productive capacity, it will lead to recession. So this model gave a formula for economic growth, that is economic growth equal to investment by ICOR. ICOR is incremental capital output ratio. So ICOR is number of units of capital required to produce additional unit of output. We'll see in the example. So it is increase in capital by increase in output. For example, let's take a soap factory and let's take a shampoo factory. In soap factory, they have put in 10 lakhs as capital investment, and they're able to generate 2 lakhs of additional output. So the ICOR will be 5. Whereas in shampoo factory, they similarly they put in 10 lakhs and they are able to generate 2.5 lakhs more income. So ICOR will be 4. So if we compare these two, shampoo factory will be more efficient. Therefore, ICOR is inversely proportional to efficiency. ICOR values trends for India. These are the trends. We can see that since 1990s, uh, ICOR has improved, therefore efficiency has improved. This is proof that LPG reforms have worked for India. And now Niti Aayog says that EODB, ease of doing business, will lead to more efficiency, uh, will lead to less ICOR. Therefore, the way forward is to improve the ease of doing business. Next, there is a paradox of low growth and despite high savings and investment, which is for example India's high savings and investment, but it is seeing the low growth. Why? Because high ICOR. Therefore, we need to improve ICOR, that is reduce ICOR, so that the efficiency will be more. Then we can properly utilize these investments and savings. So what are the stages of capital formation? First stage is savings, which is about 30% of GDP. So savings is net disposable income minus the consumption. So who saves more? Household saves 60%, private corporate saves 35%, and public sector saves 5%. But these two guys, they borrow more than they save, therefore they're net borrowers, whereas households, they are the net savers. So most important saving entity is households. Next, small thing, companies, they make 100% profit. Of those, 22% will be given as corporate income tax, and rest they will be given as a dividend, which is part of profit divided between shareholders, and the remaining thing is undistributed profit, which is used for reinvestment. This is called as the corporate savings. So this part is the corporate savings. Next stage is finance, that is mobilization of the savings for investment platforms through financial institutions, for example banks. Next, last stage is investment, which is around 32% GDP. which is also called as a gross domestic capital formation. This is expenditure in capital goods. Private sector does 80% and public sector does 20%. In a closed economy, which has no economic relation with the rest of the world, savings will be equal to investment. But in an open economy, investment will be equal to savings plus net foreign capital inflow, which will be in terms of both investment and borrowings. Therefore, government wants to promote investment. Therefore, it will promote both increase in savings, for example, tax benefits under Section 80C, and also from the net foreign capital inflows in terms of FDI, FII, and external commercial borrowings. Next, the components of investment. First one is the fixed investment, which is the most important. This is the expenditure on capital goods. Second, we have valuables like gold and silver. And next, change in stock and inventories like raw materials and unsold finished goods. In general, when we're talking about investment, we're talking about the fixed investment and other, not the other two. For example, a person earns 10,000 and spends 7,000 consumer goods, and remaining 3,000 he saves in bank and 1,000 as a cash. This cash will be in this third category, and fixed investment will be only this 2,000. So fixed investment is generally called as the investment. Next, we have the determinants of investment, which is interest rate. Higher interest rate, people will have more incentive to invest. Profitability expectations, which is the business environment, which is dictated by the ease of doing business, skilled labor, infrastructure, and demand environment. And next, we have the trends of investment in India. Since 1991 till 2008, investment has been increasing, and since then it has decreased, and recently has increased again. So this is a slight recovery. This was the peak. So what is the concern is the growth rates the high growth rates that India has been putting up, this cannot be sustained with low investment rates, which is already being seen. So we need to increase our investment rates. So this was the Roderick research, which was cited in Economic Survey 2017. So according, he found that savings does not have much correlation with economic growth, and whatever correlation is there, higher the savings, lower the economic growth. But economic growth does have very high correlation with investment, so higher the investment, higher the growth. So traditional approach is to increase savings and both investment, but Roderick says that investment elicits its own savings, therefore focus on investment, savings will take care of themselves. This does not mean that savings are not important, this is just that investment will elicit its own savings. So the conclusions of Roderick, we can say that investment slowdowns are more detrimental than the saving slowdowns. Therefore, investment slowdown must not happen at any cost. Next, policy priority in the short run should be on investment. For example, unearthing black money, converting gold into financial savings, quoting foreign savings. These are all related to savings. These should not be not much focused than investment schemes. Next, we have paradox of low income but high savings, which is in India because of the cultural factors like dowry, lack of social security and old age security, for example. Inequalities were very high, tax deductions are high, high interest rates and stable financial sector. So these are the reasons why India has low income yet high savings. Next, we have the virtuous cycle of growth, which is again in economic survey. This says that first we have to invest, and the investment will lead to economic growth, which will lead to more consumption, which will lead to investment, and this will keep on repeating. But the investment will turn into more economic growth with a 3 to 4 years lag, and economic growth will turn into more consumption 1 to 2 years lag. This was again given in economic survey only. So GDP growth, if we increase the fixed investment in the current year, the GDP growth will fall down, but with the 3 to 4 years lag, it will increase. And again, if we same thing with the GDP growth for 1 to 2 years gap. Next, the fixed investment by institutional sectors. We can see that private sector is more or less constant and public sector is also more or less constant, but the household sector is falling, therefore overall falling. Therefore, fixed investment from the households, as we have seen, which is the most important sector, is the main reason for the overall falling investment rates in India. Next, this is very conceptual. Let's understand. If we increase the savings, investments will increase and growth will also increase. But if we increase the savings, demand will fall down and growth will also fall down, and so will the prices. So which will actually happen in developing countries? If we increase the savings, investment will increase and growth will also increase. But demand will fall down, but growth won't fall down. Actually, growth increases, and but prices will fall down. This is called as a paradox of high growth and low inflation. Whereas in developed countries, if the savings increase, investment won't increase and growth won't increase. Rather, demand will decrease and growth will decrease and prices will decrease. This will lead to recession. So why does this happen? Let's understand. Initially, if we look at the developing countries, demand is very high compared to their supply, so which is their capacity to produce. Therefore, if we savings are more, the demand will fall down, but still the demand is more than enough to cover the supply. Therefore, people will invest in increasing their productive capacity, whereas in the developed countries already demand is much lower than the supply. If the demand further falls, they have no incentive to increase the more supply. So what will they will do is they will stop the investment, so growth will fall down, investment will fall down, price will fall down, which will lead to recession. This is called as the paradox of thrift, given by J.M. Keynes. According to him, if savings increase, demand will fall down and growth will also fall down, leading to recession, which was exactly what happened in Great Depression of 1929 to 33. Whereas here in the developing countries, productive capacity is already low, therefore increase in demand will not lead to any increase in growth. Rather, it will only decrease prices. This is called as a paradox. So why does this happen? Because of relatively high demand, because of huge population and budgetary deficit for developmental expenditure. Both these complaints will put large money, large amounts of money in the hands of large population, which will drive their demand. Whereas in the Great Depression, it was due to the fall of the aggregate demand, which was solved by J.M. Keynes. So he gave the solution that just increase the aggregate demand, the problem will solve itself. So savings are good for growth for the developing countries because of paradox of high growth with low inflation, which is example seen in China. So solution for Great Depression, according to classical economic theory, since depression will lead to high employment, reduce the wages and employment will increase. But if the wages will decrease, the aggregate demand will fall down, therefore there is actually no need to produce, so companies won't hire people. So this model has failed. So James Keynes, he said that this classical theory is applied to the microeconomic situation, for example a firm, but in a macroeconomic situation increasing aggregate demand is the solution, which was followed and problem was solved. So contributions of James Keynes: first of all, he made the capital systems more stable by using his aggregate demand management, so recessions are very less seen. Need for the government intervention, he said there is need for government to intervene, whereas classical theory says no. And Keynes says that Keynes is the basis of the modern macroeconomic theory. For example, in the Atmanirbhar Bharat, we are following the Keynes method only by using the stimulus package to increase the aggregate demand by pumping more money.